when I discovered my mother-in-law had put an abortifacient in my bird's nest soup. My heart turned ice cold in an instant. 3 months pregnant, and she actually wanted my child to die. I pretended I knew nothing, carrying the bowl of loving bird's nest soup towards the living room. "Honey, Mom made this especially for me. You should try some too." Just as he was about to take the bowl, my little sister-in-law burst through the door in a flurry. Who knew my sister-in-law would return at this moment, barging in and yelling, "I'm starving," without a word. She picked up the bowl and gulped it all down. My mother-in-law watched all this unfold, looking as if she'd been struck by lightning, and collapsed to the ground. The celadone bowl slipped from Liu's hand, with a clatter. The sound of shattering was sharp and clear. The thick bird's nest soup splattered all over the floor, like a pool of sticky wounds that could never heal. "Mom, what's wrong?" Leon's exclamation pulled my thoughts back to reality. He threw down his phone and frantically tried to help Zhang Guifan, who had collapsed. Zhang Guifan, my mother-in-law, was like a pile of mud with its bones removed. Her eyes were fixed on the shards on the floor, her pupils dilated, her lips opening and closing. But no sound came out. Her usually harsh face was now filled with indescribable fear, a fear originating from the depths of her marrow, like the end of the world. "Ugh, this soup tastes a little weird." Liu smacked her lips, her delicate eyebrows furrowing. As soon as she finished speaking, her face changed. She clutched her stomach, her body curling into the shape of a shrimp. "It hurts. My stomach hurts so much." Cold sweat instantly beaded on her forehead. "Xiao Yu." Leon completely panicked. He tried to help his mother while also trying to support his sister, his movements both comical and pathetic. The living room instantly descended into a chaotic mess. Only I stood in the center of the chaos, as calm as ice. "What are you waiting for? Call 120. I shouted at Liang, my voice filled with a calmness that even surprised me. Liang woke as if from a dream, his hands trembling as he reached for his phone. But Zhang Guifan burst forth with surprising strength at this moment. She grabbed Liang's pant leg, her nails digging deep into the fabric. Don't go to the hospital." Her voice was hoarse, like an old bellows. Her venomous gaze was like a poisoned nail, fixed firmly on me. In that gaze was accusation, hatred, and a hint of plea. She wanted to say something, but it was as if something was choking her. In the end, all emotions turned into a beastly growl. The ambulance's sharp siren grew louder as it approached. Medical personnel rushed in, lifting Liu, who was almost unconscious from the pain, onto a stretcher. Zhang Guifan cried out, wanting to follow the ambulance, but she was too weak to even stand. I kindly supported her, sending her and the flustered Liang onto the ambulance together. Inside the ambulance, the space was cramped, and the atmosphere was oppressive. Liu's painful moans intertwined with Zhang Guifan's suppressed sobs. Zhang Guifan tried repeatedly to pull Liang aside to talk. Her eyes darted around, yet were filled with urgency. "Liang, come here. Mom has something to tell you." There was no way I would let her have her way. I immediately squeezed between them, holding Liu's icy hand. "Don't be afraid, Xiao Ye. Sister-in-law is here with you." I used my body to subtly separate the mother and son. Zhang Guifan's venomous gaze nearly burned through my back. I could feel Liang's body stiffen. He looked at me, then at his mother, his face displaying an unprecedented frustration and confusion. The hospital corridor's lights were a ghastly white, devoid of any warmth. The smell of disinfectant permeated the air, drilling into my nostrils and stimulating every nerve ending. Liu was wheeled into the emergency room. The red light lit up, like a cold eye, scrutinizing us, anxiously waiting outside the door. Each second of waiting felt like an eternity in a frying pan. Zhang Guifan finally found her opportunity. She grabbed Li Ong into a corner, her voice not loud, but shrill enough for me to hear clearly. It's all Su Qing's fault. It must be her. She's jealous. She's jealous of how good we are to Xiaoye. She doesn't like Xiaoye and stewed those unclean things to hurt her. Every word was a heart-wrenching slander. I leaned against the cold wall, listening to this distorted account of events. A cold sneer in my heart. Truly Zhang Guifan. Even at a time like this, her first reaction was to throw mud at me. Li Ong's footsteps approached, stopping in front of me. I raised my head, meeting his gaze. In those eyes I once loved deeply, there flickered something I had never seen before. Doubt, like a tiny splinter. It pricked gently into my heart, not painful, but sickening enough. Su Qing, he began with difficulty. What Mom said. Is it true? At that moment, my heart sank into a bottomless abyss. We had been married for 3 years, and I had always believed that I had done my best for this family. But in the end, in his heart, I couldn't even outweigh a single incitement from his vicious mother. I looked at him, and suddenly found it all so laughable. Tears streamed down my face. Unbidden, the door of the emergency room creaked open. A doctor in a white coat emerged, his expression grave. Who is the patient's family? The 3 of us immediately rushed forward. I'm her brother. Doctor, how is my sister? Li Ong's voice trembled. The doctor adjusted his glasses, his gaze sweeping over us. The patient is 7 weeks pregnant. Due to the accidental ingestion of medication, she suffered an acute miscarriage. The baby couldn't be saved. The words exploded like a thunderclap in the silent corridor. Pregnant. Miscarriage. Li Ong's mouth formed an O. His face filled with disbelief. Li Yu had broken up with her boyfriend of 3 years less than a month ago. None of us knew she was pregnant. Zhang Guifan was the first to react. Miscarriage. My grandchild is gone, she muttered to herself, her eyes vacant. The next second, she seemed to go insane, screaming as she lunged at me. Su Qing, you poisonous woman. It's you. You harmed my daughter. You killed my grandchild. Her fingernails, like eagle claws, slashed viciously at my face. Li Ong instinctively pulled me behind him, shielding me. Mom, calm down. What's going on? His voice was filled with pain and conflict. Like a trapped beast, I was protected behind him, but I felt no warmth. Zhang Guifan shoved me, causing me to stumble back a few steps, instinctively protecting my own lower abdomen. There was my own equally fragile child. My child, the child she had almost snuffed out with her own hands. An immense surge of grief and anger welled up from the depths of my heart. Tears fell like a string of broken pearls. Mom, how can you accuse me like this? My voice was soft, yet filled with a grievance and tremor that could move anyone. You personally brought me that bird's nest soup, saying it was to nourish me. How would I know there was something in it? How would I know Xiaoyu would drink it? How would I know she was pregnant? I cried myself hoarse, as if I had suffered the greatest injustice. The doctor listened to our conversation, his brow furrowing even deeper. Who made that bird's nest soup? What exactly was added to it? All eyes focused on Zhang Guifan. Zhang Guifan's face instantly turned deathly pale, but she quickly calmed down and began to do what she did best, turning the tables. It was her. She took it out herself. She pointed at me, her voice shrill and piercing. I don't even know what that is. She's the one with a guilty conscience, trying to harm people, and now she's trying to frame me. What a performance of the thief crying "Stop thief." I watched her ugly face twisting the truth, and a cold laugh echoed in my heart. But on my face, I still wore that look of extreme grief, as if I had been wronged to the utmost. Mom, how could you do this? I took out my phone from my pocket, my hand trembling slightly from excitement. I opened the photo album and turned the screen towards Leong and the doctor. I didn't mean to. I just saw Mom adding white powder to the bird's nest. And I felt a little uneasy. I was originally thinking that when you came back, we could ask Mom together what kind of high-end supplement she added. I really didn't expect that Xiaoya would suddenly come back and drink it. On the phone screen was a screenshot of a video. The picture was a little blurry and the light was very dim, but you could still clearly see Zhang Gaifen's familiar face, sneakily pouring a packet of white powder into the stew pot. That was last night when I heard movement in the kitchen and secretly recorded it. I had originally intended to use it to question her, to confront her, but I never expected that it would become the first shot fired in this war in this way. Leong's gaze was locked on the phone screen. His breathing became heavy, and his chest rose and fell violently. He slowly, inch by inch, turned his head towards his mother. That look was full of shock, confusion, and a hint of pain from being deceived. Mom, is this true? Looking at the screenshot, the blood drained from Zhang Gaifen's face in an instant. Her lips trembled, like a fish out of water, flapping uselessly. No, she photoshopped it. She's framing me. Her defense was pale, weak, and ridiculous. The entire corridor was as silent as death. I turned off my phone, put it back in my pocket, and cold tears still hung on my face. But in my heart, a small flame of revenge ignited. Zhang Guifan, this is just the beginning. What you owe me, what you owe my child, I will make you pay back, with interest. 3. The road home felt long and endless. The atmosphere in the car was colder than the Siberian cold wave. Leong drove the car, his eyes fixed on the road ahead, his jawline tight. Zhang Guifan huddled in the corner of the back seat, like a defeated rooster, drooping her head and saying nothing. Occasionally, she would raise her head and glare at me with resentful eyes, then quickly lower her head again. I leaned against the car window, watching the street scenes flashing past, my heart desolate. This man, whom I once thought I could entrust my entire life to, this family, which I once tried so hard to fit into, today, I was completely exposed by a bowl of bird's nest. Back home, as soon as the light in the entrance hall turned on, that suffocating silence enveloped the entire house again. Give me the phone. Leong's voice was hoarse. With an unquestionable command, I said nothing and handed him the phone. He snatched it, opened the video, played it repeatedly, zoomed in, and played it again. In the dim light, Zhang Gaifen's actions were clearly visible. Opening the cabinet, taking out a small white packet, tearing it open, pouring all the powder inside into the stewing pot, and then quickly stuffing the wrapper into her pocket. Every action betrayed a guilty conscience. Mom, what exactly did you add to it? Leong's roar echoed in the empty living room, hurting the eardrums. Zhang Gaifen's body trembled violently. The next second, she suddenly exploded. She sat down on the floor with a thud, began to beat her chest and stamp her feet, and wailed, "I'm wronged. I'm more wronged than Doi. I raised you with my own blood, sweat, and tears. Wasn't it easy for me? Now that you've married a wife, you've forgotten your mother, and you're ganging up with this vixen to wrong me. This familiar act she performed almost every week when I first married into the family. In the past, Leong would be at a loss and try to coax her, and I could only stand aside, like an outsider, awkward and helpless. But today, Leong just looked at her coldly, without a trace of emotion in his eyes. I'm asking you, what exactly did you add to it? He repeated, word by word, his voice as cold as ice. Zhang Gaifen's crying stopped. She realized that this trick wouldn't work today. She rolled her eyes and came up with a plan. What added what? I didn't add anything. Su Qing framed me. She doesn't want to have this child herself. She thinks our family is poor. And she thinks I, her mother-in-law, am in the way. She poisoned herself, wanting to get rid of the child. And then framed me. That way she would have a reason to divorce you. Li Ong, wake up. This woman's heart is more poisonous than a scorpion. Her remarks turned black and white. Said with tears and sorrow, moving listeners to tears. I have to admire her. At this point, she can still fabricate such ridiculous lies without changing her expression. What's even more pathetic is that I saw Li Ong's eyes starting to waver again. His gaze swept back and forth between me and my lower abdomen. And once the seeds of suspicion are planted, they will take root and sprout wildly. I looked at him, my heart sinking inch by inch, along with the last bit of nostalgia for our 3-year marriage. It also faded away. I'm tired. I'm truly exhausted. I don't want to argue or explain anymore. What's the point of talking to a grown man-child who's been brainwashed by his mother? I just look at him calmly, even coldly. Li Ong, is that really what you think of me? The words are light, but they land like a heavy hammer, striking his heart fiercely. His face turns ashen in an instant. I don't look at him anymore, turning to face Zhang Guifan. Mom, you say I'm framing you. Then let's find that bowl right now and have it tested. Let's see if there's really any medicine in it like you said. And let's see who put that medicine there. My voice isn't loud, but it carries clearly to every corner of the living room. Zhang Guifan's expression changes instantly. She jumps up from the ground like a cat whose tail has been stepped on. Test what test? The person's already in the hospital. What's the point of testing? She shouts as she rushes into the kitchen like a gust of wind. Immediately after, a loud crash comes from the kitchen. The sound of porcelain breaking. We rush into the kitchen. We see Zhang Guifan standing in front of a pile of shattered fragments. A hint of panic and guilt on her face. Oh. My hand, how could I not hold it steady? Her explanation. A blatant attempt to hide the truth. Sounds particularly ridiculous. Li Ong isn't stupid. He looks at the shards on the floor, then at his mother's face, which is written all over with guilty conscience. The scales of suspicion, which had just tilted towards Zhang Guifan, once again swing heavily back to my side. I look at Zhang Guifan's clumsy performance, the corners of my mouth curving into a cold arc. Broke the bowl. You think you can destroy the evidence like that? How naive. For Zhang Guifan thinks that with the bowl broken, there's no way to prove anything. Her courage returns. She straightens her back, and her voice becomes loud again. Li Ong, you saw it. How scheming this woman is. She's capable of anything to frame me. We can't afford this kind of venomous woman in our family. Divorce her now. Immediately. She points at my nose, spraying saliva everywhere. Her expression makes it seem like I'm the heinous criminal. Li Ong's head is pounding from her shouting. He waves his hand impatiently. Mom, just say less. Then he turned his head and looked at me with a weary gaze. Su Qing, you go back to your room first. Let's all calm down. Let me go back to my room. Let me calm down. And then let you mother and son shut the door and discuss how to pin all the blame on me. I calmly looked at Zhang Guifan. Her face twisted with arrogance. Mom, you have such a good memory. You broke the bowl, but forgot to throw away the trash. Didn't you? My voice was soft, but it was like a thunderclap, exploding in Zhang Guifan's ears. Her face turned white in an instant. I ignored her and walked straight to the kitchen trash can. Amid their surprised and uncertain gazes, I bent down and reached inside. Then, I took out a clean, small trash bag that I had prepared in advance. The bag was small, containing only one thing. a torn open, white powder packaging bag. I held up that small trash bag, like displaying a trophy. In front of them. What is this? You wouldn't not recognize it, would you? I poured the contents of the bag onto the clean countertop, on the white packaging bag. A few black printed characters were clear and glaring. Mifepristone, a common emergency contraceptive, but also, at the same time, a drug to terminate early pregnancy. When Jean Guaifin saw those words, it was as if she had seen a life-threatening ghost. She was completely dumbfounded. Standing there, her lips trembling, unable to utter a word. Liang's reaction was faster than hers. He rushed forward and snatched the packaging bag. With a trembling hand, he took out his phone, photographed those words, and searched. The moment the search results popped up, I clearly saw the color draining from his face inch by inch, leaving only a deathly pallor. His body swayed, almost unable to stand. The phone slipped from his weak hand and fell to the ground, the screen shattering instantly. Like his heart at that moment, he slowly raised his head, looking at his most respected mother with the eyes of a stranger. There was a deathly silence in the living room. Only the wall clock was ticking, as if counting down to this absurd farce. I broke the silence. I walked to Liang, picked up the phone from the ground, and pointed the screen at him. Then, I raised my head, my gaze coldly sweeping over the mother and son. Each word was clear and distinct. Now, do you still think I'm wronging her? 5. The evidence was irrefutable. No amount of sophistry seemed so pale and weak in the face of the 4 words Mifepristone. Why? Liang's voice was hoarse, as if rubbed by sandpaper. Why did you do this? He almost roared the last few words. It was a desperate roar of faith collapsing after being betrayed by the closest person. Jean Guaifin's psychological defenses completely collapsed at this moment. She knew that she could no longer deny it. So, she used her last resort, playing the sympathy card. With a plop, she knelt on the ground and hugged Liang's thigh. Son, Mom was wrong. Mom was just confused for a moment. Tears and snot instantly covered her face, looking as miserable as possible. I didn't mean to. I was just too scared. She began to tearfully fabricate a ridiculous and vicious lie. I went to the temple to burn incense some time ago and found a master to tell our family's fortune. The master said that the child in Su Qing's belly clashes with our Li family. It's a debt collector. He said that if this child is born, at best, the family's wealth will be exhausted, and at worst, it will bring your family to ruin. Son, Mom is doing this for you. I can't just watch something happen to you. I only have you as my son. You are my life. She cried so heartbrokenly, as if she were the most innocent and wronged person, using superstition as an excuse and maternal love as a shield. How ridiculous and vicious. I watched her emotional performance coldly, feeling waves of nausea in my heart. She was betting on Liang's filial piety, betting that he wouldn't dare to do anything to his mother who was doing it for his own good. Unfortunately, she bet right again. I saw the anger in Liang's eyes slowly extinguishing, replaced by a painful struggle and hesitation. His clenched fist slowly loosened. He looked at his mother kneeling on the ground, crying her heart out, and a hint of unbearable pain flashed in his eyes. Seeing him like this, I laughed. A heartfelt, mocking laugh. This is my husband, a grown man-child forever wrapped in his mother's lies and control. I have completely lost hope for this man and this marriage. I didn't expose Jean Guaifin's life full of loopholes, because I knew it was useless. You can never wake up someone who is pretending to be asleep. I just spoke calmly, without a trace of emotion in my voice. Since this family can't accommodate me and my child, then I'm leaving. Having said that, I turned and left without a hint of reluctance. I went into the bedroom and took out the suitcase I had prepared long ago. I began to pack my things, one by one. My clothes, my books, my cosmetics. Those objects that had once witnessed our sweet past now seemed full of irony to me. Su Qing. What are you doing? Li Ong panicked. He rushed in and pressed down on my suitcase, preventing me from closing it. Can you stop making a scene? Making a scene. I looked up at him, finding the words to be an utter joke. Li Ong. From beginning to end, do you think I'm the one making a scene? Your mother wanted to kill my child, and in your eyes, that's just a little squabble between women. Is that right? My question was like a sharp knife, leaving him speechless. He took my hand, his voice tinged with pleading. Qing Qing, don't go. I'm begging you. I know Mom did wrong. They'll have her apologize to you. Give her another chance. Okay. I shook off his hand, my eyes cold. Li Ong, remember this. Opportunities aren't given by others. She destroyed it herself, with her own hands. I closed the suitcase, grabbed the handle, and brushed past him. This time, I won't look back. 6. I dragged my suitcase to the door. Just as my hand touched the doorknob, I was pulled back with great force. Li Ong held my arm tightly, his eyes red-rimmed. Su Qing, you can't leave. If you leave, what about our home? What about our child? Home. I felt like I'd heard the biggest joke of all. Li Ong, tell me, does this house with a murderer and an accomplice deserve to be called home? My words were like a resounding slap in the face, hitting him hard. His face turned pale instantly. In the living room, Zhang Guifan panicked when she saw that we were really about to break up. She got up from the ground and pointed at my nose, ready to start cursing again. You jinx. Shut up. Li Ong suddenly turned around and roared at her. This was the first time he had said such harsh words to his mother for my sake. Zhang Guifan was stunned by the shout, her face filled with anger and fear, but she didn't dare to say another word. Li Ong turned his head, looking at me with pleading and helplessness in his eyes. Qing Qing, don't go. Stay. Let's talk it over. Looking at him like this, I didn't feel a shred of emotion. What is there to talk about with someone who can't even stand firm? What can they offer? Just as we were at an impasse, Li Ong's phone rang. It was the hospital. Li Yu had woken up. Li Ong, as if finding an escape route, immediately answered the phone. I don't know what was said on the other end, but his face grew more and more unsightly. After hanging up, he said to me wearily, Xiao Yu is making a fuss at the hospital, wanting to see me. I'll be right back. Wait for me, and we'll talk. After saying that, he hurriedly left the house. I knew that his so-called talk was just another round of compromise and mudslinging. I didn't wait for him. After he left, I dragged my suitcase and left that disgusting place without looking back. I booked a room at a nearby hotel. Just as I settled in, I received a call from Li Ong. His voice on the phone was filled with unprecedented fatigue and confusion. Qing Qing. Xiao Yu. She knows everything. She's crying so hard in the hospital that she's about to lose her breath. I listened quietly, without saying a word. I expected Li Yu to find out. After all, you can't keep fire wrapped in paper forever. She said. She said Mom has always been biased towards her. Li Ong's voice was intermittent, as if talking about something that had nothing to do with him. From childhood to adulthood, Mom always secretly stuffed money into her hands, buying her very expensive gifts. But she was always harsh on me, saying boys should be raised poorly. I always thought that was Mom having high hopes for me. I never thought. She also said, once when I had a high fever, almost developing pneumonia, Mom took her on a trip abroad. She said she didn't understand back then and was very happy because the whole trip was just her and Mom. After we got back, I was already better, and the matter was forgotten. Lee Ong, on the other end of the phone, babbled like a child. Those details he had ignored for 30 years surged into his heart like a tide at this moment. Each one was like a needle, densely pricking his heart, making him begin to doubt if the past 30 years of his life were a joke. Ching Ching, tell me, does such a mother exist in the world? He asked me finally. I didn't answer him, but in my heart, a bold and absurd guess had quietly formed. Zhang Gaifen's favoritism towards Liu had far exceeded the bounds of a normal mother-daughter relationship. It was an almost pathological compensation, giving her everything she had, and her harshness and neglect towards Liang also crossed the line of raising a son poorly. It was a deliberate alienation and indifference. What if Liang wasn't her biological son? Once this thought emerged, it could no longer be contained. All the irrationalities seemed to have a rational explanation. 7. I guided Liang over the phone, encouraging him to recall more of the childhood details he had overlooked. Liang, think carefully. Besides these, is there anything else that makes you feel something is wrong? He was silent on the other end of the phone for a long time. So long that I thought he had already hung up. Then, I heard his voice, tinged with a tremor and uncertainty. Blood type. My blood type is O. I remember it clearly because I donated blood when I was a kid, and the school issued a certificate. My dad is AB, and my mom, she's A. His voice grew softer and softer, carrying a kind of absurdity that he himself dared not believe. The most basic knowledge from biology class. A mother with blood type A and a father with blood type AB cannot have a child with blood type O. I used to. I also asked her about it. She said that the hospital must have made a mistake back then and told me not to think wildly. She said I was born after 10 months of pregnancy, flesh that fell from her body. How could I not be her own? At that time, I believed it. Looking back now, how clumsy, how vulnerable that lie was. But he, just like that, believed it for 30 years. Liang, go look for it. My voice was very soft, but it carried an undeniable force. Go find something that can prove your background. Birth certificate, household registration book, or old things from your parents. Must be hidden in those corners you've overlooked. Hanging up the phone, I could imagine the inner turmoil Liang was experiencing at this moment. To let him personally uncover the scar of his own background was cruel, but a long pain is worse than a short one. Only by letting him see that can he truly break free from Zhang Gaifen's control. That night, I didn't sleep a wink. Liang didn't contact me again either. The next afternoon, he finally sent me a picture. It was a letter. A yellowed old letter with frayed edges. The letter was signed by Liang's father, Li Jianjun. The recipient was one of his comrades. The handwriting on the letter was from that era. Strong and forceful penmanship. Most of the content was ordinary greetings and reminiscences of the past. But at the end of the letter, there was a passage that Liang had marked conspicuously with a red circle. The family matters are hard to explain in a few words. For the sake of this family, for the sake of Guifan being able to gain a foothold here, I finally compromised. Old comrade, don't worry. Although he is not my biological son, I will treat him like my own son and raise him well. Just a few short lines, but like a bolt from the blue, it shattered Liang's 30 years of life into pieces. An adopted son. He was actually an adopted son. All the favoritism, all the unfairness, all the harshness and indifference. At this moment, there was the most cruel and most reasonable answer. He was not a piece of flesh that had fallen from her body. He was just a tool she had adopted in order to gain a foothold in her husband's family. a tool that allowed her to play the role of a virtuous wife and loving mother, silencing the gossiping mouths. And Li Yu, the daughter she cherished in the palm of her hand, was her only biological flesh and blood. Below the photo, Li Ong sent a sentence. Ching ching. What should I do? Looking at that line, I could almost see his helplessness and despair at that moment. I replied with 8 words. Don't be afraid. I'm with you. Let's go home. 8. I returned to that so-called home. Opening the door, I saw a scene of chaos. Li Ong sat on the sofa, like a sculpture that had lost its soul. At his feet, cigarette butts were scattered all over the floor. The old wooden box that he had found, locked, was placed on the coffee table, the lid wide open. Inside were some of his father's belongings, military medals, old photos, and that letter that had determined his fate. I walked over and gently hugged him from behind. His body was as stiff as a stone, but after feeling my body temperature, it began to tremble slightly. Then, he turned around, buried his head in my arms, and cried bitterly like a child who had suffered a great injustice. 30 years of repression, 30 years of grievances, 30 years of self-doubt. At this moment, with his heart-wrenching cry, it all poured out. I didn't say anything, just hugged him, stroking his back gently, again and again. I knew that from this moment on, my relationship with him was different. We were no longer the couple wavering in the midst of mother-in-law and daughter-in-law conflicts. We were comrades, the only allies each other could rely on. The next day, Li Ong and I took the letter back to Zhang Gaifen's hospital room. Li Yu had been moved to a regular ward. Though her face was still pale, Zhang Guifan was sitting by the bed, diligently peeling an apple for her. When she saw us come in, her face immediately plastered on a fake smile. Oh, Su Qing's back. Come, sit. Li Ong, what took you so long? Xiaoye has been talking about you. She skillfully played the part of a loving mother, a virtuous mother-in-law, as if all the previous disgrace and quarrels had never happened. Li Ong ignored her eagerness. He walked to the bedside and slapped the letter down on the nightstand in front of Zhang Guifan. Then, with red eyes, he asked her, word by word, am I, or am I not, your biological son? The smile on Zhang Gaifan's face instantly froze. Her gaze fell on the letter, the familiar handwriting causing her pupils to constrict sharply. She knew that everything was exposed. She wanted to argue, to deny, but faced with Li Ong's bloodshot eyes, filled with pain and accusation, she couldn't utter a single word. Finally, as if all her strength had been drained, she slumped weakly in her chair. She confessed, yes, you're not my biological son, Xiaoye. Xiaoye is my real daughter. She admitted it so easily, as if she were merely stating a trivial matter. I used the drug only because I didn't want your wife's child to take away our family's property in the future. Those things were originally supposed to belong to Xiaoye, to be left to my grandson. Her words were like poisoned knives, piercing deeply into the hearts of Li Ong and Li Yu. Li Yu looked at her mother in disbelief. She never imagined that her mother's love was built on such selfishness and malice. Li Ong's heart died completely. He looked at the strange woman before him, the woman he had called mom for 30 years. Zhang Guifan. He called her name in a tone he had never used before. Ice cold and biting. No longer mom. It was Zhang Guifan. I stood aside, watching the climax of this farce. I felt that the heat wasn't high enough. So, I opened my mouth coldly and dropped the final bomb. Zhang Guifan, you really played your cards well. It's just a pity that man proposes, but God disposes. Not only did you want to kill my child, you also personally killed your own grandson. This sentence became the last straw that broke Zhang Guifan. She suddenly raised her head and looked at Li Yu, whose face on the hospital bed was ashen. Then, she seemed to finally realize what she had done. She let out a piercing scream, collapsing to the ground, wailing. The cry was desperate and full of regret. But it was too late. Everything was too late. Liu was discharged from the hospital, having learned the whole truth. She was a changed person, no longer the spoiled and willful little princess. Her eyes held a trace of vicissitudes and resentment that did not belong to her age. She returned home and had the most intense argument with Zhang Guifan in history. I don't have a mother like you. You hurt my brother's family for me, and you killed my child. You don't love me at all. You're hurting me, she cried and shouted, locking herself in her room, ignoring Zhang Guifan's cries and pleas outside the door. Finally, she packed her luggage and ran away from home. Before leaving, she sent a message to Liang. Brother, I'm sorry. Please apologize to my sister-in-law for me. After Liu left, the house felt even more like an ice cellar. Liang formally confronted Zhang Guifan. He announced that he would sever his adoptive mother-son relationship with her. At the same time, he demanded that she move out of the house. This house was allocated by Liang's father's work unit, and the property certificate was in Li Jianjun's name. As the only legal heir, Liang had the right to dispose of the house. Zhang Guifan, of course, refused. She threw a tantrum, rolled around, cried, and used all her acting skills. But this time, Liang didn't soften. He brought in mediators from the community and respected elders from the family. In front of everyone, he revealed Zhang Guifan's actions, his own life mystery, and everything. Those relatives who had been won over by Zhang Guifan with small favors were shocked and angry after learning the truth. They accused Zhang Guifan of being selfish, vicious, and stupid. Those who used to revolve around her, praising her as virtuous and capable, now stood on Liang's side. They advised her, since you're not blood-related, don't occupy someone else's house. They advised her, you should be content. Liang has done his best by raising you for so many years. Zhang Guifan was abandoned by everyone overnight. She lost her son, her daughter, her reputation, and everything she had once been proud of. She became a complete loner. She was finally scared. One night, she found me. She knelt in front of me, begging me with tears in her eyes, begging me to forgive her, begging me to persuade Liang not to drive her away. The weariness on her face had completely replaced the past meanness and shrewdness, leaving only endless humility and fear. I looked at her, my heart unmoved. I simply told her coldly, you earn your own respect. Your plight today wasn't forced upon you by us. You created it step by step yourself. All of this is your own doing. With that, I closed the door, shutting out her cries and pleas. I won't sympathize with her, because I know that being kind to the wicked is being cruel to oneself. She finally tasted the fruit she had personally planted, the one called retribution. Zhang Guifan was ultimately asked to leave that house. Liang found a distant relative in the countryside to temporarily take her in, and he would send some basic living expenses each month. This was the last bit of decency he could manage as a person. The house was finally quiet. Sunlight streamed in through the clean glass windows, illuminating the room brightly. My relationship with Liang also entered a new phase. He was filled with gratitude and remorse towards me. He told me more than once that he had been blind, that his filial piety had been foolish, almost ruining our home and harming me and our child. He vowed to spend the rest of his life making it up to me. I told him that we are husband and wife. We are one. Let the past be the past. What's important is that we face all future problems together. My generosity made him cherish me even more. I took the initiative to contact Liu, who had run away from home. She had found a temporary job in a friend's city. On the phone, there was no blame, no lecturing, just like a sister. I comforted and consoled her. I told her that she was also a victim of this tragedy. She didn't have to punish herself for her mother's mistakes. On the other end of the phone, she cried uncontrollably. She sincerely apologized to me and to herself for her past arrogance and for her mother's actions. I chose to forgive her because I knew that she, like us, yearned to escape the shadows of the past. Leong began to handle the property left by his father. He transferred a portion of it to Li Yu's name as a guarantee for her future life. We made a joint decision to sell this house, which was filled with too many bad memories, to go to a new city and start our new life. At the moment of making the decision, I stroked my gradually swelling belly. I felt an unprecedented sense of peace within, and boundless anticipation for the future. 11 years later, the Jiangnan water towns, Leong and I settled down in a quiet southern town. I successfully gave birth to a healthy baby boy, with eyes like Leong and a nose like mine. Leong completely turned into a daughter-doting and wife-doting man. He took over all the housework he could, changing diapers, feeding, lulling to sleep. He was proficient in everything. Watching his clumsy yet earnest demeanor, I often couldn't help but burst out laughing. We occasionally received calls from Li Yu. She had completely emerged from the shadows of the past. In that city, she found a stable job and also met a new boyfriend, said to be very honest and good to her. On the phone, she chattered about her new life with us, her tone full of sunshine and vitality. Once, she unintentionally mentioned Zhang Guifen's recent situation. She said that Zhang Guifan was living very poorly alone in that old house in the countryside. Because of what she had done in the past, relatives were unwilling to associate with her. She was alone, isolated, and her mind had become somewhat distracted. She sat at the door all day, muttering apologies to her son, her daughter, and the unborn grandchild. Some time ago, she had a serious illness, running a high fever for several days, with no one around to even pour her a glass of water. In the end, it was the neighbor who saw that she hadn't left the house for several days, broke down the door, and sent her to the health clinic, saving her life. Sister-in-law, do you think this is retribution? Li Yu asked me with a complex tone on the other end of the phone, holding the sleeping baby in my arms. Looking at the bright sunshine outside the window, I felt no joy, only a sense of peace. Yes and no, I said softly. She chose this path herself, so she must bear the consequences. What goes around comes around. Retribution is certain. She paid the heaviest price for all her evil deeds, spending the rest of her life in endless loneliness and remorse. Perhaps this is the best ending. 12 time flies like a white horse passing a crack. In the blink of an eye, a few more years have passed. Our child went to kindergarten, lively and adorable, the joy of the whole family. Leong's career was also thriving, and we moved into a big house with a yard. Li Yu and her boyfriend got married and settled down in that city. She occasionally brought her husband and children to visit us, although she and Leong were not blood related. Their brother-sister relationship now was better than ever before. They would sit together, chatting about the funny things from their childhood, those once ignored, painful memories, which now seemed like fodder for laughter. My parents also moved from their hometown to live with us, helping us take care of the children, the whole family living happily together. I used my spare time to obtain a certificate as a child psychology counselor. I opened an online studio, using my own experiences and knowledge to help women and children who have been hurt in family relationships. My life is busy, fulfilling, and full of meaning. One sunny afternoon, Leong and I sat on the wicker chairs in the yard, drinking tea, watching our children and Li Yu's children chasing and playing on the lawn. Their laughter, like silver bells, filled the entire yard. The years are peaceful, and the present is stable. Those past shadows felt like something from a past life. Long since left behind, Leong reached out and held my hand tightly. His palm was warm, dry, and full of strength. He looked at me, his eyes filled with unwavering tenderness and love. Wife, thank you. It was you who gave me a real home. I held his hand back, smiling and shaking my head. No. It's us. It was us who used love and wisdom to overcome all the malice. And only then did we usher in our own happiness. In the sunlight, we smiled at each other. I know that the road ahead of us is still long, but as long as we are together, hand in hand, heart to heart, then there is nothing that can separate us anymore.